Hello. Good morning. Thanks for tuning in to Keeping It Real with the Deja Show. I hope all my kings and queens is doing well and feeling good. All right, today we have some stuff for you. We're going to start off with Tucker Carlson. Okay, yeah, all right, because this man, he keeps it real. Okay, we can see through that, the little bullshit. We can see that he reading, off the teleprompter. But, some of the shit that comes off this show is really what we need to hear. So I'm just going to break it down for you. Today we're going to talk about Sarah Jeong. She is a writer that New York Times just hired. Okay? Now, this woman is a racist. This Asian bitch they got going on. I'm going to call her a bitch because this bitch is racist, okay? People talk about me being racist. This bitch, okay, excuse me. I'm just going to continue on. All right, so racism at the New York Times. Writer Sarah Jeong is a bigot, and the New York Times just hired her. But not long ago, if we all can remember, the New York Times called our president, Donald Trump, a bigot, a fascist, a racist, and part of the KKK. And also, the New York Times also harasses representatives by writing stuff in the New York Times, calling them racist as well. Now, let's get back to Sarah Jeong, the biggest bigot of the year. This woman has the nerve to put these certain tweets out that I'm about to read and have the audacity to never delete them. And these are tweets from 2014. You would think by 2018 she would go back and just, see that maybe I should just delete some of these. Oh no, this bitch is proud of her racism. So, her first tweet. Oh man, it's kind of sick how much joy I get out of being cruel to old white men. Now, this got 21 likes. This was posted July 24th, 2014. Now, with that type of tweet, oh man, it's kind of sick how much joy I get out of being cruel to old white men. That sounds like the bitch was a whore. That sounds like, dominatrix shit right there to me, but hey, who am I to judge? Okay, so we have second tweet. Dumbass fucking white people marking up the internet with their own opinions like dogs pissing on fire hydrants. This was posted November 28th, 2014. This bitch got some nerve. Third tweet. Hashtag cancel white people. This got 54 likes. I like to know who was liking this bitch stuff, to be honest. I think I'm going to have to take a gander on this bitch page. She probably deleted it by now. Okay, this was posted November 18th, 2014. She's just having a hard week, seems. Tweet number 4. White people have stopped breeding. You'll all go extinct soon. This was my plan all along. This was posted August 16th, 2014. Now, see, this is why I don't trust them fucking Asians. Y'all people out there just steady saying I don't fuck with them. Damn Chinese, Asians, Japanese. No. Okay, you'll learn. So, the New York Times stands by their new writer, Sarah Jeong, despite her racist tweets. Ain't that a bitch? But if you know, not long ago, this lady was stating this clip that a woman got fired because she called someone a nigger. And someone a faggot. But this one, she's saying that she wants to get rid of all y'all white people. All y'all white people. If you let me see, hashtag cancel white people. With 54 likes. Shit. Fuck that. Now see, that's crazy. She ain't saying no shit against no black people because she know y'all white people just gonna sit there and talk shit. Black people, we done hunt that bitch down and whoop her ass. You putting all that cancel black people and shit, all that now. But no, she got hashtag cancel white people. My whole thing, I'm wondering, how you gonna hire this bitch? How you gonna hire her? She probably gonna do a post office fucking gun sweep on y'all asses. And y'all was warned she ain't fucking with y'all, but meanwhile, y'all gonna hire her. So I want to know who's the head of New York Times. Is you Asian, Japanese? Because if you white nigga, you just fucked up. Okay? Now, they replied back to us by saying, the New York Times, quote, Sarah Zhang's journalism and the fact that she is a young Asian woman have made her subject of frequent online harassment. You gotta be shitting me. But she went to Harvard. So I guess Harvard are breeding racist bitches now. You know, people that can't handle what they put out. She's been like this all her life, most likely. So, New York Times went on to quote, the meaning New York Times went on to saying, for a period of time, she responded to that harassment by imitating the rhetoric of the harassment. Bullshit. Now, if you're going to believe what they had said, you're a fool, just like they are a fool for putting that statement out. Okay? There is no need for all this. Like, if you look at her picture, the bitch do look miserable, so I don't know. This something sounds very fishy. It could be fake news, but I don't think this shit is fake news. Because you know what? A lot of people that work at that New York Times, they're racist. The shit that they put out, come on now. We done seen it. We done heard it. Now, without further ado, let's roll the clip. And if you don't know, this is all real talk. Yes, real talk coming from Keeping It Real with the Deja Show.
Something else that happened today because we think it tells you a lot about where this country's moving. When you were growing up, you probably learned one of the most basic moral principles that there is. You ought to treat other people as individuals for who they are, not on the basis of how they look or who their parents are, what their parents did. You ought to judge people for what they do and what they say, for the choices they make. That was a good principle. We haven't always followed it as individuals or as a country, but we ought to try to follow it as best we can. Our hardest, because bigotry diminishes and hurts people. It's pretty simple. And yet somehow, over time, the institutional left has decided to reject that idea and embrace a standard that is both new and time-worn. You may have assumed that race guilt, collective punishment, moral purity based on bloodline, you thought those were discredited ideas, creepy relics of a darker time. It turns out they're not. It turns out the New York Times wholeheartedly embraces those ideas. So does much of the left. Yesterday, the Times announced it was hiring a woman called Sarah Zhang to write about technology for the paper. Within hours, readers discovered Zhang's Twitter feed, which she had not bothered to delete, apparently because she was not embarrassed by it. Judging by what she wrote on Twitter, Sarah Zhang is an angry bigot, and not in a subtle way. Here are some examples of her tweets. Quote, oh man, it's kind of sick how much joy I get out of being cruel to old white men. Another, quote, dumbass effing white people marking up the internet with their opinions like dogs peeing on fire hydrants. Another, quote, hashtag cancel white people. At one point, Zhang tweeted a crude graph claiming that as whiteness increased, so did awful. Later, she said that white people smell like dogs. There's another one, quote, white people have stopped breeding. You'll all go extinct soon. That was my plan all along. And on and on. Well, people are getting fired for far less than this across corporate America right now, but the New York Times decided to double down on Sarah Zhang's behalf. Here's part of the statement the paper sent out about her, quote, Zhang's journalism and the fact she is a young Asian woman have made her a subject of frequent online harassment. For a period of time, she responded to that harassment by imitating the rhetoric of her harassers. In other words, it's not her fault. White racism caused Sarah Zhang's racism against white people. She's the victim here, Harvard graduate, oppressed person that she is. Some of Zhang's many defenders in the press accused her critics of taking her tweets out of context, but that's not true. We checked. There's no context for these tweets. Sarah Zhang was furious at an entire race of people, and she said so on Twitter. You'd think somewhere on the left, the last responsible person would be cringing at all of this. It's all so ugly and awful. In an earlier time, it would be considered indefensible, but modern progressives are happy not simply to defend it, but to attack anyone who questions the joy that Sarah Zhang derives from being cruel to white men. Lydia Palgreen, the editor-in-chief of HuffPo, who is widely regarded by her peers as a moron, announced that criticism of Zhang is, quote, part of a deeply troubling trend of far-right agitators trying to get journalists fired. Far-right agitators, okay. But actually, we're not calling on Zhang to be fired. We're not liberals, so we don't believe that every person we disagree with ought to be crushed, including Sarah Zhang. We believe in free speech, even when it's reprehensible, maybe especially when it is. What we would like to see, though, is some honesty. Let's all stop lying for a minute. What Sarah Jeong said was wrong, but it was only shocking because she expressed it so clearly. In point of fact, her views are commonplace in the American establishment, maybe universal. Try to find a single government bureaucrat or college administrator or head of corporate HR who disagrees with the idea that people should be judged by the color of their skin and that some races are more virtuous and deserving than other races. They all think that, every one of them. And yet, remarkably, these very same people are the quickest to cry racism at the slightest provocation or for no reason at all. They think of themselves as arch enemies of racism. They get tattoos on their arm telling you that, and yet they're its chief purveyors. Deep, deep irony. How do they do that? Well, simple. They redefine the term. As Vice.com succinctly put it a couple of years ago, quote, "It is literally impossible to be racist to a white person." Pretty much the entire left now takes that as a matter of faith. They deeply believe that. But what does that mean exactly? Is there really an entire race of people so repulsive, so morally repugnant that it is, quote, literally impossible to wrong them? You could do anything to people like that and not feel bad about it. In fact, why wouldn't you? They deserve it. They're not really human. That's the attitude. It's not hard to guess where ideas like that wind up. We've seen it. All of us should be afraid of it. All of us, regardless of color. There are plenty of examples in history of what happens when people start thinking this way. And they're all sad. It's awful. And yet this is the mindset the left has imposed on our country. It's an attitude designed to dehumanize the individual, to erase what makes each of us interesting and distinct and vital, and reduce us to faceless members of a group. It's totalitarian. We ought to resist it with everything that we have. Tammy Bruce is a radio show host in New York and a frequent guest on the show. She joins us tonight.
Bravo.
Tammy, thanks a lot for coming on.
Bravo opening
Thank
statement.
you.
Brilliant, yeah.
Well, it just seems obvious. Anybody over 35 grew up learning that you ought to judge people by what they do and say and the choices they make and not by their race because they can control their race. And yet, without the rest of us sort of acknowledging or saying anything, the left has turned that on its head and now it is unacceptable to say that. What happened exactly?
Well, look, I think this is what the left has done wherever it has gained some sort of power around the world. It survives by dividing and conquering, right? And the New York Times, interestingly, has an editorial position that really does inflame, if you will. It's like a little cottage industry of creating kind of a racialist guide for division and resentment. You see it in their editorial pieces. You see it in the columnists as well. And this is why I think this young woman will fit right in. Now, at the same time, as you've noted, we're not looking for someone to get fired, but there is a hypocrisy here where nobody also knows what the rules are. So the rules are different for a certain group of people. They're different for people of color, perhaps, but really that's what they want you to think. The real difference here, Tucker, is progressives, right? And they're using issues of race, let's say, of sexuality, of gender, in order to create those divisions. So in this case, another woman had been hired by the New York Times last February, also a tech writer, to be on the editorial board. And she was exposed as having some tweets against, there was a slur used for African Americans and for gays. And she was immediately fired. Now, the reason was because her crime was against progressives. And the difference here is, of course, is that the presumption is, and the message to liberals is, if you are going to belong, if you're going to be correct, if you're going to be saved, you can't be with conservatives or people who are just simply not paying allegiance to the progressive end. That's what this is. Now, the danger, in a way, of what this young woman will be doing at the Times, and I think bad ideas should be out in the open so that we can confront them,
I agree.
right?
I agree completely.
In this instance, she'll be part of the editorial board that issues editorials that are not signed. There are no bylines to the editorials, and that what they set the tone for the paper itself. So it's a harder dynamic to argue directly to someone when it is an organizational position. So this is what removes us from this.
Point.
Yeah.
All right. The fact that they're teaching our children that some groups can be discriminated against, really wrong, and I think that we should call them out on it. Tammy,
It is.
Great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
but thousands of non-citizens are already appearing on the voter rolls. You'll hear on other channels, that's a myth. It's not a myth. It's true. Some of them are casting ballots. J. Christian Adams is president of the Public Interest Legal Foundation. He joins us tonight with details. So, Christian, we keep hearing that's untrue. It's never happened. Is it true? Prove to us that it's true.
Well, you can go to our website at publicinterestlegal.org and pull up the original records, Tucker, of the dozens upon dozens, hundreds upon hundreds of people that are getting onto the voter rolls from Russia, Canada, Mexico, and some of them are tragic stories. Refugees from Sudan who said, I told them I wasn't a citizen, but they kept pushing me under motor voter to register to vote, even though I told them I wasn't a citizen.
Well, I mean, how does that happen? I thought that there would be, since it is a federal law barring non-citizens from voting in federal elections, there would be some mechanism to prevent it. It seems like there's a mechanism to encourage it.
Right, it's the broken motor voter system. What happens when you go into any DMV office is they're pushing you. And in places like Pennsylvania, we know that there was a glitch for 2 decades where non-citizens were getting on the rolls. We just published a report called Stealing the Vote about Pittsburgh, where non-citizens were getting on the rolls. They were voting. They were begging to be removed when they got their citizenship applications because they could go to jail. And so what was happening was people were marking, yes, I'm a citizen, but they were from Russia, or they were simply lying over and over again and voting. College students and get out the vote drives were registering and voting, even they're from other countries. The system does not have a check. That's what people need to understand. There's no verification. It's an honor system, and that's why so many aliens are getting on the rolls.
Exactly. And the same people who lecture us about the sanctity of our democracy and the efforts of foreign countries to subvert it are the same ones pushing this garbage. Christian Adams, thank you for the work that you do on this. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tucker.
Now, didn't we already talk about non-USA citizens shouldn't be able to vote? Look how they just pushing it. Your agenda is in the working, honey.
FISA application has been released in part. Big portions of it, though, were redacted, and those portions could help reveal the extent to which the Obama administration surveilled the Trump campaign, which they did. Congressman Devin Nunes is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. He represents California in the House of Representatives. He joins us tonight. Mr. Chairman, thank you for coming on. So, you've seen the entire document, the entire application, FISA applications to spy on Carter Page and then the Trump campaign. Much of it was redacted, pages and pages redacted. Do you believe, knowing what was redacted, that the public has a right to see that information?
Absolutely. So what we heard for a long time is that the memo that we created to make sure that the American public knew that the FISA contained the Steele dossier, or the so-called dirt that the Clinton campaign paid for, bought it from Russians, fed it to the FBI in order to get a FISA warrant on Carter Page. We said that made up the bulk of the FISA. We were made fun of, we were told that was wrong, that we were lying, when in fact we were 100% right. It did make up the bulk of the FISA. Then you noticed that right after that came out, they said, well, but what's really important is the information that's redacted. Then lo and behold, they found out that just a couple months before, the Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee had actually asked for about 20 pages, at least 20 pages, to be declassified of the Carter Page FISA. Those today, Tucker, remain redacted and hidden from the public. We believe that if the public saw that information, they would have a very clear picture to what Director Comey called a mosaic. And I think the public needs to understand, what is this mosaic that was created by the FBI, fed to the DOJ, fed to a FISA court in order to spy on an American citizen and effectively get information directly from the Trump campaign.
Yeah, so here you have the Obama administration spying on a rival political campaign, specifically on a man who has never been charged for the crimes that were the pretext of the spying in the first place. And yet no one on the left cares at all. And I guess my question to you, again, having seen the information that I'm not allowed to see, is there a good reason, a national security-based reason, to keep that information from the public? On what grounds was it redacted?
Oh, quite the opposite. There is a national security reason to make sure that the American public sees this in its entirety, because this is a phony FISA. Okay, the Department of Justice and the FBI put something together that is completely fraudulent in order to spy on an American citizen. It's our job as Congress to bring sunlight and full transparency to this,
Okay,
to this
then
process.
let's let's do that
Interest
now.
of the
Why don't you
DOJ
hold on?
and FBI to let that happen.
Okay, then why don't you send it to me now, and I will put it on the air in the back half of the show. I mean it. I'm dead serious. You are the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee.
Yeah.
It is you are elected by voters to make these judgments. Bureaucrats elected by nobody are telling us, threatening us basically, that it hurts national security. You're the one with the power. Why don't you send it to me? We will put it on the air and let the public decide. Is there a penalty for that?
Well, just remember, I'm not the one with the power. Now, hypothetically, could I go to the House floor, or could I go out in my official duties and tell the American public what's in the rest of that FISA? I could. However, I mean, you already see, remember, most of the media and the left is against us and against.
Just so you know, he ain't come through. Him and Tucker chatted it up. Nope, motherfucker just sitting there lying. Man, you gotta read in between the lines with these men and the shit that goes on. So, anyway, let's go to some other news. We have something called dragon breath. Ain't this some shit? Some Chinese people done came out with some shit, and it is just ridiculous. People using it. Us Americans really need to take a step back and try and think why would we want to use something by someone who doesn't like us? Huh? Chinese people don't like us. Come on now, they got their own fucking town and shit. Ain't nothing in English. Nobody speak English really. You know what I'm saying? And you trust these motherfuckers. Yeah, a lot of stuff says made in China. Yeah, huh? But if you look at the toys and how much lead they have in them, I don't trust these motherfuckers. So now they got some goddamn shit called dragon breath. And it's supposed to, you take it, and it's supposed to make smoke come out your nose and out your mouth. Yeah, it looks cool. But I'm not trying this shit. So without further ado, roll the clip.
That makes smoke come out of your nose and mouth. It's called dragon's breath. But could this be dangerous for some kids? One mom says yes.
Watch as smoke comes out of their mouths and noses. They're eating a tasty but controversial new frozen treat known as dragon's breath. It's everywhere on YouTube, and it's popular at malls and stores. It consists of cheese puffs or cereal that's instantly frozen in liquid nitrogen. Then you grab a skewer, put it in a dipping sauce, or eat it with your fingers. Once you pop it into your mouth, out comes the smoke. That's why it's called dragon's breath. But is it safe? Lane Madison tried out dragon's breath. At first it was fun blowing out smoke, then he ate another one. And you can see Lane poking with his tongue.
I stuck my finger in my mouth and did that. There was blood on my hands.
Lane had burned the inside of his mouth. He said the pain was almost unbearable.
For about 3 weeks, I was limited on what I could eat.
Little Johnny McKinney of Jacksonville, Florida, ate dragon's breath at a local mall. His mom, Rachel, says the smoke triggered an asthma attack. She posted video of Johnny eating dragon's breath with a warning to other parents. Around 20 minutes in, the cough became really consistent. He was coughing so bad that he was having trouble catching his breath. He ended up in the hospital. Dr. Rajini Raj says you could be in big trouble if the liquid nitrogen hasn't completely dried.
Any part of your body that's coming in contact with liquid nitrogen can be damaged because it's very destructive to the tissues of your body. So that could be the skin on your fingers, it could be the lining of your mouth, your esophagus.
Her advice is simple.
I think the safest thing to do is to avoid any sort of food or beverage that's been prepared with liquid nitrogen.
Dragon's breath has been around since 2016, and injuries have been reported ever since.
Man, fuck that shit. I ain't trying that. Nobody happened to say, what's the side effects? That shit ain't supposed to be in our system. I'm telling you, crazy. Anyway, so let's continue on. Without further ado, the celebrity of the day is... Oh, before we do celebrity of the day, I want to give a shout out to Alf. Alf is coming back. You don't believe me? Watch this clip.
Soon hit TV. Alf may return to Earth. Yep, we were with the alien life form throughout the show's run in the late 80s. But a fresh take on the sitcom is reportedly in the early stages of development. The series about a cat-eating alien living in the suburbs ran for 4 seasons after premiering in 1986.
Let's face it, I'm trapped here. I'll never see the purple side of my planet again.
Still ahead.
Don't front, you know you can't wait. I'm waiting patiently. Now, without further ado, the celebrity of the day is...
is going through a bit of divorce and visitation battle with her ex, Stephen Belafonte. She was this is a kid buddy. She was, honey, feeling footloose and fancy free when she posted this jaw-dropping pic on the ground.
Oh, Lord.
Whoa, what's going on here?
She looked good. She looked good, too.
All right, now she was frolicking completely naked, honey, with her friend and hairdresser, Gary. She captured back to basic, naked but never afraid. Finally, honey, with my bestie Gary, hashtag blessed, hashtag trust, hashtag brutally honest, hashtag no drama.
Oh, man, you need to do that, Gary.
I wish the hell I would get that.
I'll be with my Gary.
Yeah, you can be a member, girl.
I feel like you would.
They ain't touching, they front parts ain't touching.
I feel like Gary would be the naked one in y'all picture, though.
They both naked here, though. They both are.
Yeah, honey, they both naked, child. Yeah, we could do that, Brad.
We could do that.
My body's coming back.
Yeah.
One love, one love, one love. Remember that song? I know y'all do. One love. Anyway, so I hope everyone enjoyed the show. And you know when we sign off, love, peace, and hair grease.